Hey everybody, it's Damien from Guitar Journey here, and today we're going to work on improving the phrasing in our solos, in our guitar leads. You know, pretty often you hear people talk about their favorite guitar player, whoever it happens to be, and they'll say something like, oh, so-and-so has such beautiful phrasing, so-and-so's phrasing is so lyrical. What's that really mean? What does it really mean to say that a player has good phrasing? And of course, how can we improve our own phrasing? My definition of good phrasing is actually a pretty simple one. I describe good phrasing as simply that when we're improvising, we get to the sweeter notes, notes that work well with the chord that's being played underneath. And in addition to getting to that sweeter note, we arrive at that sweeter note in a musically interesting or a musically satisfying way. So again, yeah, good phrasing, arriving at sweeter notes in a musically satisfying way. Now, the first part of that, the sweeter note, is what I want to get out of the way to begin with. Depending on who you talk to, some people will tell you that the sweeter note has to be a so-called triad note. And a triad note is just one of the three notes that happens to make up a basic chord. You know, most basic chords, whether it's something like A minor, C major, G major, whatever, are made up of three individual notes. And we call those three individual notes the triad notes. So some people will tell you that landing on one of the triad notes for a given chord that's being played underneath our solo gives you a really sweet sound. And that's not wrong. But I think it's kind of maybe potentially problematic for a couple of reasons. One, it may be that the chords are coming by so quickly that trying to land on the triad note is really challenging. And I personally think it's a mistake to over-intellectualize your guitar playing so that you're constantly doing these mathematical calculations on the fly, thinking, well, which chord is coming up? What are the triad notes of that chord? Where can I find them on the neck, etc.? All this analysis when what you're really supposed to be doing is creating a beautiful melody. And some advanced players are capable of that kind of analysis on the fly, and they make it work really well. But many advanced beginner and intermediate level students really aren't. And in any case, even if you are capable of it, and most certainly if you're not capable or you're not comfortable with it, my recommendation is that instead of thinking your way to the sweeter note, you want to listen your way to the sweeter note. Instead of thinking your way to the sweeter note that'll resolve your phrase really nicely, you want to listen your way there. At any given time, you want to be asking yourself, where does this note, where does this melody that I'm developing want to go in light of the chords that are being played and in light of the chords that are coming? And when I say the chords that are coming, I don't mean that you're thinking ahead a couple of measures knowing that a C chord or a G chord, whatever, is coming. Just the sound of that chord. If I'm soloing, I'm not really thinking, okay, here comes the A minor chord. I'm just recognizing that in a given chord sequence that I'm pretty familiar with, you know, this sound is coming. I'm not thinking or analyzing. I'm not saying, okay, A minor is coming, A, C, E. I just know that this sound is coming, okay? Whatever we choose to call that sound, and we could call it nothing at all, we just know that sound is coming. And I'm trying to guide my phrase to work with that sound. So that's my first objection to looking for triad notes. Too much analysis, not enough listening. My second objection is that focusing on triad notes is very limiting. The truth is, with the right expression, the right articulation, you can make essentially any note in a given scale, in a given key, work well over just about any chord. It's not just the triad notes, sevenths, ninths, 11ths, 13ths, all sound good over any given chord if you get to them the right way. Remember, our working definition today of phrasing is arriving at the sweeter note in a musically satisfying way. So like I said, pretty much any note in any key can work over just about any chord if you get to that note in a good way. But of course, that begs the question, what do we mean by getting to that target note, whatever that note happens to be, in a musically interesting fashion? And that's what we're going to focus on improving for all of us here today. How do we get to our target note in a musically satisfying or a musically interesting way? Well, of course, there are dozens and dozens of ways. I can't list every last one here in a YouTube video. The video would be a few hours and we'd still miss a bunch. But I'm going to give you some examples today, actually a number of examples, and I'm going to demonstrate them. In order to do that demonstration, I'm going to play a simple lick that's going to land on this particular target note. It's a B note right here, 7th fret, 1st string. It's a B note, and in each example, I'm going to use the exact same short backing track excerpt, and I'm going to do mostly the same lick over and over and over so that we can hear how each different approach, each different idea sounds as compared to the other. We're going to land on that target note, but the real question is how we're going to get there. Now, of course, we could get to that note in a very boring way, maybe just going up the scale, playing basic eighth notes and landing on that target note, and that's going to sound something like this. And it's fine, just maybe not that exciting. So, okay, what can we do to make it a little more interesting? Well, the list is pretty much endless, as we said, but the first thing we might want to do is vary the rhythm. We can play the exact same notes in the exact same order, but change the rhythm as we work our way up to that target note. And there is almost no limit to the ways that we can vary the rhythm, but one is a no-brainer, and that's just make some notes longer than some other notes. And that might sound very simply like this. Also, we might experiment with playing some kind of off-the-beat phrase like this. And like I said, there are dozens of other ways that we can vary the rhythm, but that's step one, varying the rhythm. We can also incorporate a variety of expressive techniques, things like bends, hammer-ons, slides, pull-offs, things like that. In order to incorporate some of these, maybe our phrase could sound something like this. And just like that, you might have noticed something. By incorporating slides, bends, hammer-ons, and pull-offs, you notice that I necessarily varied the rhythm and also varied the order of the notes. I'm pointing that out because I want you to keep in mind that this list of ideas to vary our phrasing is not an either-or kind of list. You don't choose to do either one idea or a different idea. You can blend these ideas literally in an unlimited number of ways. Okay? So moving right along, what else can I do? How about if I start adding some chromatic passages? That is, instead of just playing the notes from a given scale, in this case A minor, I can mix in some sharps and flats, some notes from outside the scale to add some extra color. And maybe that could sound something like this. Another idea is what I like to call breath points. Remember when we talked at the beginning of this video about how sometimes when we like a player's phrasing, we describe it as being very lyrical? Take that idea literally for a minute. Lyrical, as in it sounds like the guitarist is singing when they play a solo. Well, ask yourself, what does a singer really have to do? She has to breathe between her phrases. And you can do that too in your soloing. Instead of just playing a bunch of notes, you can take a given passage, put in pauses, what I like to call breath points, and different pauses, breath points between different short phrases within that passage. You might not be totally silent the way a singer is when she's inhaling. Instead, you might be sustaining a note, applying some heavy vibrato to a held note, that kind of thing, and that could sound a little bit like this. Earlier on, we talked about varying the order of the notes. One really simple but effective way we can do that is what I call up three. You can go up 3 notes at a time in your scale, but then go back a note, go up 3 more, go back a note, go up 3 more, etc. You can do this actually as a simple scale exercise. It's a good picking and fingering exercise. It could go kind of like this. And so on and so forth. And we can work that into when we use a scale in a solo, and maybe we can vary the rhythm along the way, and now our passage could sound something like this. And of course, just as you do up 3, you could try up 4 as well, or any other number that you want to play around with. Okay? Just a couple more ideas. One thing that I think really helps us break out of a rut, something that really helps us not to sound like we're merely playing notes, merely playing scales in our soloing, is to use wide interval leaps. Instead of just going, let's say, like this, C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, maybe we jump from the A to the E, or the C to the F, or the D to the G, or maybe we go the E to the A, and use that to arrive at our B note, which is going to be our target note for this demonstration. And that could look a little bit like this. Okay, time for our last idea, but I want you to keep in mind, this is just the last idea we're doing today. The truth is, the ways that you can articulate, the ways that you can creatively arrive at a given note are pretty much endless. We're going to end today with one of my favorite ideas, which is using double stops to arrive at a given note. Now, there are a lot of different ways to do double stops, and I'm not going to try to teach them all today. Basically, a double stop is when you play 2 notes at the same time or at approximately the same time, and you sort of move them together to create essentially a harmonized melody. Now, in popular music, very often our double stops will be either what we call 6s or 3rds. I personally also use 4ths quite a bit in my own playing. Double stop 3rds will sound something like this. I can arrive at my target note this way. In the alternative, I can use double stop 6s, and then I'd arrive at my target note maybe like this. One last time, I want to emphasize, the list today is not either or. We can put all these varying elements together along with a bunch more that I didn't have time to mention, and that'll go a long way towards making our phrasing very interesting, very musically satisfying. Okay? All right, that's all I have for you today. I hope you found this video useful. And if you did, please give it a like. And please also subscribe to the Guitar Journey channel. We've got so much content here on Guitar Journey, from playing tips like today's video, to music theory lessons, to jam tracks, to videos that help you navigate the awesome but sometimes overwhelming journey that is learning and playing guitar. So please hit like, please hit subscribe as well. If you really, really, really like today's video, please buy me a coffee. Buy me a coffee at the link in the description below. And finally, if you have a suggestion or would like to leave a comment, make a suggestion, ask a question, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I really do value your feedback. I mean it. So please hit like, please hit subscribe, buy me a coffee if you want to. Leave a comment, ask a question, make a suggestion for a future video. I'd really appreciate that. Have a great day.